Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Anuna Bev, Best Express Views. Best Express Views on the most thought-provoking perspectives and insights. Amidst the chaos surrounding our city, it's another beautiful Tuesday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's all witness the unwavering resilience of the people of Las Vegas as they persist. Hit that subscribe button and don't forget to like PHLV Radio. I want TFC, my page at Bev Lorente NV, XIG, and Threads. In the wake of unimaginable tragedy, the repercussions of mass shootings ripple far beyond the immediate moment. Join us as Dr. Althea Baranda-Clark, film clinical psychotherapist, navigates the harrowing terrain of trauma, examining its profound impact on individuals, communities, and the human spirit in the aftermath of these devastating events. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Clark.
Magandang umaga sa iyo, Bev.
Ayan,
thank
say
you
hello.
for having me. And magandang umaga sa Pilipinas.
Cebu.
To my Cebuano friends and Cagayan de Oro friends, maayong buntag.
Maayong buntag sa inyo, Visayas and Mindanao. Yan. Doctor, discussing trauma isn't always easy, yet it remains an essential topic.
Sure.
Despite its challenges, the show must go on as conduit to addressing this crucial subject. So, in matter of days, our community has been rocked by successive tragedies, from the loss of two Nevada state troopers to a drunk driver. How does to the UNLV shooting? So how does the accumulation of these traumatic events, such as the recent tragedies in Las Vegas, impact individuals and communities from a psychological perspective?
So first of all, Bev, I wanted to. This is, of course, a horrific events recently.
Yes.
So collectively, you could only imagine that we're all shocked and saddened and just overwhelmed and experiencing immense grief.
Correct.
And but before I go on and really explain that in great details, I wanted to give you a little overview of what trauma is so that we can use this as a reference point.
Okay. So let's talk about trauma.
So
one wants to talk about trauma.
I know it is such a broad word, but I conceptualize this a continuum. Like, for instance, with a shooting incident, if this is a continuum and then a shooting incident would be right here, it's safe to say that's one of the worst things. And then here could be like being humiliated in public. In the middle could be divorce. So it's a continuum. So trauma is, I'm going to give you two of my favorite definitions of trauma. And the first one is by Dr. Gabor Mate. He's a Canadian physician who eventually worked with trauma-related work in children. He says, trauma is not what happens to you. It is what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. So keep that in mind as we continue discussing this. And then the second one is by a neurologist, Dr. Robert Scare. He says, trauma is any negative event that occurs in an experience of relative helplessness. So remember those two definitions, and we'll keep going back to that. And the key word here is helplessness. Helplessness evokes like a lot of fear, like takot na takot ka, like parang you're in fight or flight response. You're so overwhelmed, either you're running away from it,
or you're shocked. You're astonished.
Your system is shocked. Exactly.
Yes.
So what's happening in the brain is experiencing so much fear. What is the opposite of fear? The opposite of fear is safety. So as we comfort. So as we navigate this and discuss trauma, the opposite of that is safety. So, as we talk about this and talk about how we navigate trauma, we're going to look at the safety, the comfort, what makes us feel safe, because we're experiencing sort of danger. So what happened in UNLV and what happened with the two troopers we experience that collectively as a whole, the grief, right? We were all shocked. And if you were close to these troopers or you worked with them, even more so. So the closer you are to the event, so with the shooting incident in UNLV, if you were actually there witnessing all of that, you have much more immense and more traumatic response. You could only imagine what the people had to go through when they were watching that unfold. Or the students. So, but if you were also there in the building evacuating, you're experiencing some degree of trauma, but not as much as the one who was actually there. Yeah. And then us witnessing that on TV or listening to it. Community members, what we experience is called secondary trauma. It's still trauma, and we're experiencing that because we imagine it. We're all exposed to danger, right? So we're experiencing it, but not at the magnitude that the students and professors experienced that were actually there and who were witness and had to barricade themselves and could hear the gun shooting. Similarly with the two troopers, can you imagine if you're a police officer and having to hear that? You're going to be afraid of your own life, the family of these troopers, and us too, like, oh my God, like how could this happen? The disbelief, all of that. So collectively, we all experience this tremendous grief and shock, like you said. Okay. How we respond to any of these traumatic events is always contextual, so it could be that we're numb, and it could be that we're experiencing a lot of sadness and anxiety, and it's manifesting into physical. What I was mentioning is a lot of emotionality. So it's either high or like you're isolating from it and numbing from it, and if you're navigating this, sometimes it's very difficult because it also manifests physically, like having
it takes a toll on your physicality.
Yeah, you can't sleep, you're ruminating about what
That's
happened.
my second question, actually. So what are some common emotional responses people might experience when faced with successive devastating events, and how can these reactions manifest?
So emotional responses, it would be like, oh my God, I cannot believe. It's a disbelief, shock, the heightened anxiety. Because what happens, what is the narrative here? What are you telling yourself when you're experiencing this? What you're telling yourself is that the world is dangerous. It's not a safe place around me. So there's a sense of my safety is compromised, right? So if this is the case that I'm just going to school, these people were just going to school, doing their routine.
Like a regular day for them, but it becomes, it turns into terror.
Right, and then all of a sudden it turns into
Nabulabog na yung katahimikan mo.
Exactly. And then us that were watching this and listening to it, like, we also reflect and how does this impact me? So I could just wake up and this could happen to me in anywhere I'll be, and this could very well happen to me. So there's a sense of danger. So that sense of danger is kind of what engages the fight or flight. And that is, again, going back to Dr. Scare's definition, any negative event that causes great
is a threat to trauma.
Exactly.
Or lead into trauma.
And again, when looking at a continuum of trauma, what causes that helplessness? It could be that, you're humiliated in public and you're so ashamed and you're just, extremely
Isolate
yourself. Or you could be in watching the news even. Watching the news could
Everything
be
is trauma.
Anything could be a trigger. So if you have history of trauma already, and you were talking about successive events and series of events, it's easy to get re-traumatized. The brain engages it.
And like the October 1st, the city bore witness to the most U.S. massive, gun shooting in the U.S. history as it unfolds, and we're going to talk about that on the second part. But from a psychological standpoint, how does the collective trauma experienced by a community differ from individual trauma, and what are the potential implications to this?
That's a great question, and the example of that, let's go back to 2020. That's COVID experience was a collective traumatic event, right? So let's look at individual. You're asking about how does this impact individual is contextual. If I already had been sexually assaulted in the past, let's just say, and had been abused or
experienced.
I have depression, I have history of mental illness, and COVID happens. What happens is that it gets exacerbated because now not only that you're traumatized, it also, let's go back to the narrative of trauma. When you're experiencing traumatic experiences or events in your life, the narrative of self, how you see yourself, is not good. It's usually is I am not good enough. There's something wrong with me.
The inferiority
I'm defective.
complex.
Yeah, I'm not worth it. So all of that, as a trauma therapist, and I've seen patients, it's like, oh, I've been, assaulted. I'm so dirty. I'm not worth anything at all. I'm a piece of dirt. So if you already have that previous narrative, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and you had to be isolated and away from everybody, it exacerbates it. Or if you're experiencing experienced COVID symptoms, and you have to,
so that depresses you more.
Depresses you more.
It adds more on to the narrative of the experience of being
negative self-view.
Yes, negative self-view, and then that becomes trauma of a trauma of a trauma.
Yes, it re-traumatizes, and let me explain why, and that's because I'm sure people ask, why is that?
So why is there an excessive trauma in a man's life?
Oh yes. How we manage is what differs. So our amygdala, which is part of the emotional brain, which is the amygdala, it senses the world for danger. It what actually senses the world for potential threats or danger. Let's say you had been bit by a dog 10 years ago in this specific place, and that you're in that same space and you saw a chihuahua, harmless little chihuahua. Your body and brain is going to react the same way as if it's happening right at this very moment, right now. You're going to sweat, you're going to, whatever you were experiencing at the moment, before, 10 years ago, you will re-experience without even knowing it. This occurs in an unconscious process, unconscious level. You didn't know that was happening. You just started sweating and started reacting. And part of that is...
It's not a deja vu, right?
It's not deja vu. Your brain is just habituated. It's just habituated to respond that way, because our brain's function is to protect us, to maximize our potential, maximize our survival, and to preserve our life. So if you're going to see a dog again and you're going to be bit, its propensity is to save you, to rescue you.
Correct.
So, really the important thing is part of healing is bringing the unconscious to the conscious, like so Freudian, bringing the unconscious to conscious, like really becoming aware of those triggers, because those are irrational thinking, right? Irrational thoughts like, no, this is a little harmless chihuahua, you're not going to get bit. That happened 10 years ago. That's not true anymore. You're in a safe space. But your rational thinking is not reachable because this amygdala, which is an emotional part of the brain, doesn't connect to your frontal lobe, which is the higher thinking, rational thinking. They don't connect unless there's awareness. There's actually a pathway. There's a science behind awareness. So the more you're aware of your triggers, the more you're aware of what causes the trauma, the more you could access this. And then you can easily then manage and be able to rationally think, oh, okay, I'm in a safe space at the moment, and no, I'm not going to get bit. I'm still going to be nervous, but I could manage it now. So that's awareness is always key first. Let's always teach people the function of the brain, because once they understand that, it makes sense that I feel this way. Why am I all over the place? That happened 10 years ago, and I'm freaking out, I'm panicking, And again, if you have negative self-view and you think yourself as defective already, it's easy to think what's wrong with me? You always ask that question, what's wrong with me? So, but if you understand that, this is really your brain trying to protect you, then you can, okay, this is just my brain's trying to protect me.
Amygdala. Dinala ka.
Dinala ka, di ba?
Dinala ka.
So amygdala, because it scans the world for danger, it also... all the traumatic memories are also stored there. But they're stored only in fragments, like sensory experiences, like what you saw, what you felt, what you heard, what you smelled, what you tasted. All of those are there. So it makes sense that if you see something that's so similar from that traumatic experiences, your brain just automatically reacts because it accesses it.
Triggers.
Because it's right there. It's the same part of the brain. Scans and then, trauma. Isn't this the same thing? is oh yeah, that is the same thing. Yeah, you should be traumatized because the dog is about to bite you. So it's kind of that sort of experience. And that amygdala triggers your brain coordinator, which is the hypothalamus, and then engages in a fight or flight. And the hypothalamus also is the coordinator for heart rate, or everything in
all
our
the
organs,
body system,
all the body systems, and it's all going haywire. So it makes sense why it's kind of like if you have 5 kids and this hypothalamus now is have to take care of the amygdala, and then now all of the other organs are sort of kind of
compromised.
Neglected. So then that's why people are like, oh, hey, I can't sleep. I have like stomach problem. I have all these, manifesting into illnesses. That's why actually stress and anxiety manifest into physical illnesses, because hypothalamus has to increase the cortisol. And what does that implicate? High cortisol, high blood pressure, higher
stress, anxieties.
Exactly, heart problems and so forth.
Let's pause for a break, and when we return on in a BAV, we will talk about support networks, rebuilding the sense of safety after a tragic event. Stay tuned.
Don't be fooled by flashy ads. When it comes to personal injury, choose the Richard Harris Law Firm. Dahil kay Richard Harris, wala kang worries.
The Richard Harris Law Firm, just in case.
I've been seeing the Richard Harris Law Firm billboards everywhere for years. But when I met him personally, I knew totoo siya. He is not just a billboard. Sa Richard Harris Law Firm, less fee, guaranteed.
Sabi ng patients ko, they don't need a colonoscopy because they don't feel anything. But colon cancer is a silent killer. It affects both men and women, mayaman man o mahirap. Have your colon checked.
With an unprecedented track record, Ardent Home Health Care Agency shines.
We work closely and diligently with our clients, their families, and their physicians.
We are committed to providing an involved trusting partnership with our clients.
We provide more than just medical services.
We help our clients restore their optimum level of function and health.
We are responsive and compassionate to the varying needs of our clients.
Ardent Home Health Care Agency, where care meets heart.
VIP Primary Healthcare Las Vegas specializes in a wide range of services, from preventive care to advanced treatments. I'm Dr. Arlene Rillo. Your health and wellness is our priority. I'm Dr. Arlene Rillo, owner of VIP Primary Healthcare Las Vegas. We provide complete solutions to address all of your health needs. From managing acute illnesses to chronic disease management, we've got you covered.
There are children who've never had the experience of being a child. Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care serves underprivileged children.
We are known for exceptionally standard in delivering excellent services.
You can be a parent, make an impact on a child's life. There were children who never had the support they needed. Open your home to a foster child.
We have a long-standing partnership with the community, families, children, and employees.
Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care. You can make a difference.
Just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
Welcome back to Anuna Bev, Best Express Views. Observing events unfold on TV reports takes on a different dimension when it's happening in your own community. The innate sense of worry and heightened sensitivity to the incident become profoundly personal. Dr. Clark, a clinical psychotherapist in Las Vegas, is also a volunteer during the 1 October tragedy. So, Doctora, in the aftermath of the gun shooting at UNLV, how might individuals reconstruct a feeling of security and fortitude amidst a series of continuous and distressing events in their surroundings?
So when a traumatic event like that happens, it only makes sense, as I mentioned earlier, all of a sudden you feel so unsafe, like your surroundings are dangerous. That's kind of what your brain is thinking now. You're kind of like hyper vigilant, right? You're constantly watching your surroundings. You walk into your car, you're looking around, you're hyper vigilant. So really, to get back to the sense of safety. I've sort of kind of likened that experience as like you've fallen and now you have to slowly get up and return to equilibrium, your sort of balance. So you have to kind of just slowly get up and get your footing back so that you can stand up again. And so when you're not feeling safe, the first thing is really to engage in emotional first aid. Emotional first aid, like you have to make sure that you're eating. Because a lot of times when people experience trauma, they neglect themselves and they don't eat, they're not sleeping anymore.
Or isolation.
Isolating themselves. And so to be really cognizant that what you need right now is that you're eating, that you're surrounding yourselves with people around you, that you have friends, and that you're venting, you're expressing how you feel if that's what you need. If you need time alone, to let family members know that you're doing that, and be able to really take care of you. Self-care, engage in self-care. And by self-care, I don't mean just spa and get massages, like, although those are good too, but, really being able to take care of your basic needs so that you can, thrive or survive and thrive beyond that. But creating routine, because when you create routine, you don't have to think. Your brain doesn't have to process it. You kind of live on autopilot. You wake up and you exercise a little bit, doing all that, creating routine, establish some kind of boundary. If you're watching the news all the time because you're obsessed with it, perhaps, scale down a little bit and not do that, and create a sense of safety around you.
Ayan. What approaches or techniques prove effective in handling and reducing heightened anxiety or distress stemming from a continuous exposure to traumatic events through news or community discussions?
Yeah, so that through news and community discussions, they could be triggers too, right? So you have to really understand if those experiences trigger you. Support system could also be a good thing. So again, the contextual comes in here, contextuality. Like if you're a person who would be so overwhelmed by the discussion, maybe scale down and just have a little bit of space for yourself and then be able to process it whenever you want it, and again, scale down and not, expose yourself to the TV watching a lot. Really understand your own psychology. If you already experienced a lot of trauma before, hopefully that by now you have some sort of understanding, like, oh, you're being around a lot of people right now really triggers me. And sometimes holiday can be a trigger, like being, right at this moment, because this, like,
the weather is cold.
The weather is cold, holiday blues, so just the weather is cold and not having family around, death of a loved one and so forth.
The hallmark of events just is triggered too, right?
Exactly. So collectively, when we experience all these fear and traumatic events recently, we also talk about, oh my God, family. I don't have anybody right now. So it triggers a little bit more than just the event itself. A lot of things can go on in our head.
So how can individuals and families best support one another and nurture resilience amid this challenging period of facing multiple traumatic events?
So family members, if your family member is experiencing a trauma such as this, is to really not be so judgmental and just allow space to be, instead of giving advice, just be a listener. Be a listener. Allow your family member who experienced trauma to just process what they experienced and to just be there and give them, practical support, like bring them food and so forth. And
just be there for them.
Yeah, engage them in fun activities, even though they may not really have fun, but at least they're with people.
But the help should also come from within. I mean, you need to help yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And then if you feel like you need to be alone in the moment, and then you that's what you need, and setting boundaries.
And it's okay, right?
That is okay. And then, of course, if it's so severe that you can't manage it, reach out to people who could provide professional
or call
services
988.
Yes, 988 was suicide hotline, or text.
It's a 3-number hope.
Yes.
Lots of hopes.
Yes.
So, Dr. Lara, what guidance or advice would you offer to aid in this process?
To aid in this process, and in what sense?
In the sense of making themselves comfortable, in the aid of making themselves safe. We have so many avenues here in Las Vegas, nationwide, diba? They can talk to a lot of people, such as you.
Right. So, yes. So it's really important that you are cognizant, if you're the one experiencing the trauma, that you are cognizant that all of these things that you're experiencing right now are normal. You know, whatever it is that you're feeling, that's how you're supposed to feel. It's not like, oh, I should feel this way, I should feel that way.
You're not
but
alone.
You're not alone. And there's tremendous guilt that comes with it sometimes. I shouldn't have gone to school. I should
Excessive guilt.
Yes. And shame and all of these, a lot of really intense
the what ifs.
emotions. Right. I could have been, you know, it
should have, could have, would have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to really be cognizant of what you're doing to yourself, and that just really validate your own emotions, and then allow for that to percolate a little bit, that this is normal. Everything is normal right now. But at the same time, even if you're isolating and you're cognizant that, yeah, I'm going to need some help, that I'm going to reach out to my support system. In Las Vegas, we have a lot of community support here. So, you know, reach out to your
Tagalog,
therapist.
be it English, be it Spanish, everybody is available, correct?
Everyone is available.
You just need to acknowledge yourself and accept that you need help.
Yeah, and in fact, here, I just saw an ad for Red Rock Behavioral Health. They're offering free counseling, and I'm sure there are other counseling services that are offered for free for the ones
affected by the trauma.
Ones who are affected by the trauma recently.
As we conclude this insightful conversation with Dr. Clark, it's clear that fostering support and resilience during times of multiple traumatic incidents is paramount. Thank you so much, Dr. Clark, for your time. Your expertise sheds light in the importance of community, understanding, and seeking professional help when needed. It's okay not to be okay, and okay na okay, diba?
Yes.
Para maging okay ang lahat.
Para maging okay ang lahat. And most people talk about trauma and post-traumatic symptoms, but it's hardly ever talked about the post-traumatic growth. The term post-traumatic growth, PTG, was coined by Dr. Tedeschi and Dr. Collin in the mid-1990s, which there's always this positive growth that arises from challenges, a traumatic event. And the resilience happens. And when you think about resilience, it happens over time after you've overcome so many difficult things in life, and then you become more resilient.
And we need to move on because we're not trees. We don't stay.
We're not trees. Absolutely.
We need to move on. We're human beings, diba?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your time and for shedding so much insights on Ano Na Bev as we continue to navigate these crucial discussions together. All the victims will doubtless need time to overcome the physical and emotional hurt that they have suffered. Sadly, we live in a period when senseless violence may erupt anywhere, and although spiritual values can help victims cope with the trauma, only God's kingdom will finally eliminate these tragedy. Always pray thy kingdom come. So thanks for tuning in. Together we spin Ano Na Bev, where discussions begin. Navigating trauma as stories chime. Join us again. Until next time for another insightful time. Subscribe na!
Don't be fooled by flashy ads. When it comes to personal injury, choose the Richard Harris Law Firm. Dahil kay Richard Harris, wala kang worries.
The Richard Harris Law Firm, just in case.
I've been seeing the Richard Harris Law Firm billboards everywhere for years. But when I met him personally, I knew totoo siya. He is not just a billboard. Sa Richard Harris Law Firm, less fee, guaranteed.
Sabi ng patients ko, they don't need a colonoscopy because they don't feel anything. But colon cancer is a silent killer. It affects both men and women, mayaman man o mahirap. Have your colon checked.
With an unprecedented track record, Ardent Home Health Care Agency shines.
We work closely and diligently with our clients, their families, and their physicians.
We are committed to providing an involved trusting partnership with our clients.
We provide more than just medical services. We help our clients restore their optimum level of function and health. We are responsive and compassionate to the varying needs of our clients.
Ardent Home Health Care Agency, where care meets heart.
VIP Primary Healthcare Las Vegas specializes in a wide range of services, from preventive care to advanced treatments. I'm Dr. Arlene Rillo. Your health and wellness is our priority. I'm Dr. Arlene Rillo, owner of VIP Primary Healthcare Las Vegas. We provide complete solutions to address all of your health needs. From managing acute illnesses to chronic disease management, we've got you covered.
There are children who've never had the experience of being a child. Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care serves underprivileged children.
We are known for exceptional standard in delivering excellent services.
You can be a parent, make an impact on a child's life. There are children who never had the support they needed. Open your home to a foster child.
We have a long-standing partnership with the community, families, children, and employees.
Bamboo Sunrise Foster Care. You can make a difference.
Just like a friend from back home.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.